I like your T-shirt there, Jordan.
Yes, we are we are here because not only is it Animaniacs' 30th anniversary, but
Let
it's
me,
also getting
yeah, yes, go ahead. It's
also
also,
getting close to another birthday, mine,
when is yours?
September 16th.
Oh, that's very close. That's only 3 days.
Uh,
Let me get
yeah.
my Animaniacs hat on. I'll be right back. Let me put that
Okay,
on.
okay, let's do that.
This is my brain hat. I'll leave that on for a little while.
Yes. Oh, okay.
That's my brain. So we're going to talk about the 30th anniversary of Animaniacs, which is today. So yeah, and so Dad, David, what's your age range? Where are you in there? Are you in your 40s?
No, I just turned 60.
Oh, good for you. So yeah. So you and so this show you were 30 when this show came on the air. And Jordan, how old are you?
Well, well, just to let you know, I was about to turn 2, and if I started watching that show right around that age, I wouldn't have understood it. I don't really think
Right.
Mom would have and Dad would have probably known too much about it because it was overshadowed by 3 things back then, and you spoofed all 3 of them in this show.
Oh, what were those
And
three things?
you had the Power Rangers where they do the super strong Warner siblings, and they have the water tower be the robot, and and they end up try to beat the try to kick the bug away and squash it. Only they destroy the lot anyway, and then they just like the Power Rangers was like so huge at that time.
Yes.
And then there was Ninja Turtles. They popped up right at the beginning of the sketch where the Warners are trying to paint the Sistine Chapel with Michelangelo and stuff.
That's right.
And the third, Barney. The Warners are basically just dropping anvils on Baloney, the dinosaur's head. Only he's invulnerable like Godzilla.
Yeah,
Can you
Baloney
guess?
is our friendly friend that we made up ourselves. Yes.
Can you guess which one out of those 3 I was allowed to watch as a kid?
Barney. Barney.
Yes, how did you know?
Because you were only 2. And that was for very young people, Barney was, yes.
He turns 32 Saturday.
Well, that's great. 32. And so yeah, my kids are right in the same age range as you. And I would bring the shows, when they were in rough form. The shows that you saw were all final and complete, and they had all the colors were right and all the music and sound was great. But I would bring them home in very rough form. And I had so let's see, you're going to be 32. I had a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I brought them home and I showed them. They would just sit there and watch them, and they would like tell me, I don't. They would tell me, I don't understand this, Dad. Or they would laugh at things, but they helped me sort of edit out the stuff that made no sense. Yeah.
Okay. So Dad might be wondering what Animaniacs is. This should indicates it. It's a variety show made in the vein of Looney Tunes. And the hosts are 3 siblings, the Warner brothers and their sister Dot. Yakko Warner,
That's him.
Wacko Warner, and Dot Warner. Their origins trace back to either 1929 or 1930 when Warner Bros. Animation created them, as the lore states in this show. But when they ended up getting created, they ended up being so rambunctious across the Warner studio lot that throughout the 1930s or whatever, that they ended up getting captured and locked into the water tower as their prison. But then they had to kind of but then they had to perform maintenance on the water tower sometimes. So so
That's right,
they
that's
ended up
right.
running around anyway. Then one day in 1993, in the show's first episode, they escape and make their studio lot and the universe their playground. And
Very good. I love that. That's a great capsulization. Very good. That's excellent.
they pretty much give everyone on the studio lot a hard time, including the CEO, Thaddeus Plotz, Dr. Scratchniff, the psychiatrist, Ralph the security guard, and the boys often get too close with Dr. Scratchniff's nurse and secretary, Hello Nurse, who she's a lot well, according to you, she's as smart as the Dickens.
Yes,
There's a
Yes.
lot more to her than just pretty looks.
that's right. And if you've seen Wacko's Wish, that movie thing, the
Yeah.
long, have you ever seen that?
A little bit.
So in Wacko's Wish, which is a like an 80-minute episode, it's not one of the it was made after all other 99 episodes. At the end of that movie, she becomes sort of the CEO of the Coca-Cola company.
Oh
And,
man,
and she's brilliant. She's really, really smart. So yes. And the Coca-Cola bottle was modeled after her shape.
oh man.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to her than just looks. So since this is a variety show, these guys are not the only ones who have a segment. As a matter of fact, there's 5. We got 2 white lab mice, Pinky and the Brain, who are vying to take over the world, but they often fail either by Pinky's silliness or a miscalculation on Brain's part.
Absolutely true. Perfect. That's right.
Then we got the Goodfellas, a trio of pigeons who happen to be parodying the Goodfellas. You know, Frankie the Wop, Andy, Fat Andy, and Jimmy 2 Times.
Yeah,
So you've seen that movie too, right?
yes, we've watched
Yes.
that together, haven't we, buddy?
Yeah, I was on AMC one time at the went around the Oscars 2010, probably for the 20th anniversary or something.
Sure. Well, yes, that's exactly correct. Those guys are from that movie. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's
And,
the voices of the pigeons. Yes. Right.
There's Slappy Squirrel, a
Yes.
80 something year old cartoon squirrel who not only is knows all the cartoon tricks in the book from her career in being in the Looney Tunes cartoons, but she also happens to hate just about everyone except herself and her own nephew, a chipper, bright young squirrel that happens to be voiced by her son Nate Ruger, Skippy.
Skippy
And
Squirrel. That's right.
yes, and I don't really know what the heck happened to Skippy's parents. Were they eaten by a dog? Were they run over? As in,
Well,
voracious appetite?
if you think about, you watch a lot, do you all watch other cartoons as well? I mean, I base Skippy, we never mentioned Skippy's parents because did they ever, like Donald Duck, did he had Huey, Louie, and Dewey were his nephews. Did they ever mention their parents? No. Popeye had nephews named Pipeye, Poopeye, Popeye, and Popeye. I mean, he had nephews. They never mentioned them. Mickey Mouse even has nephews. So anyway, it's like it's a cartoon tradition to have like a star with a nephew.
Yeah. Oh, cartoon tradition. Buttons the dog is a loyal
Yes.
dog who's trying to protect a small child named Mindy.
That's right.
And Mindy often ends up running away, and Buttons is often chasing off after her in these crazy situations. Yet Mindy somehow effortlessly managed to escape all of them and to get back home safely. And it's always Buttons who gets the blame just because of a little something he ends up doing right before Mindy finally gets home.
That's absolutely correct. And by the way, your vocabulary is perfect. I mean, it is. It's sort of Mindy that goes about it effortlessly, just as you said. And Buttons is trying to rescue her every time, and he always like pushes her out of the way of danger, and then he gets creamed. And I just realized, and I don't know why it took me 30 years to realize this, but the first cartoon I ever wrote, which was back in 1980, and was to get a job. It was like a spec script, and it wasn't Buttons and Mindy. It was called Pitts and his pal, and his pal Pitts was depressed, and he was he was like doing things like Mindy, like walking off a cliff and going in front of traffic, and his pal, who was named Kegs, would rescue him every time and get annihilated. So I realized just now that the first cartoon I ever write was like it was the first iteration of Mindy and Buttons, the first sort of like primitive
Tom,
version.
Are
What?
you a cartoon writer or are you also an animator?
I started at Hanna-Barbera as an animator, drawing, and then they started sending a lot of stuff overseas, and I realized, oh, I'm going to be out of a job. So I started writing. So since then, I draw stuff, I write stuff, I help with the scripts, but it's always like a team effort, and we all but I was the producer of a lot of these shows, so I would draw stuff, and guys would clean it up, and we had a lot of great writers who I worked with, and anyway, so I did a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah. And finally, there's Rita and Runt, a dog and cat duo whose main end goal is to look for a place for a home, a forever home, and oftentimes they get into these little scrapes and stuff, and Runt has to rescue Rita, and then they escape or either get kicked out. But they always help carry the day with a song, provided by Rita's lovely singing voice, Bernadette Peters.
That's exactly correct. And you notice that every one of their cartoons, absolutely every one of them, has a great song by Bernadette Peters. And she would fly out from New York. She's a great Broadway star, as you probably know. And she would arrive like at noon at the studio, and she wouldn't have heard the song before. And by 5 o'clock that afternoon, she will have recorded the song, and it'll be just like she's been on Broadway with it. I mean, she could turn any song into something really great.
That's not the only musical connection. 4, 5, 6 degrees of musical that we have here. As a matter of fact, Sherry Stoner, who you've co-produced the show with and did some writing with, she has a surprising history. Apparently, you guys first met when Dad, hang on for this. She was modeling for Ariel and the Little Mermaid, the Disney animated classic Little Mermaids. And since you didn't show up last year for My Little Animaniacs thing, then I decided, okay, I'm gonna have him show up for this year. So here we are.
And a big thank you, by the way.
Oh, well, no, it's but Sherry is she, as you know, very talented. She's brilliant. As you said, I met her when we were first working on Tiny Toons, and a fellow named Wayne Katz, who was working with me story editing on Tiny Toons, he said, I have a friend who's a groundling. She's really funny. I think you should give her a script. And so we gave her this script, and I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, the things that you remember that are just like burned into your memory. And so I'm at home on a Sunday afternoon, and she calls up and says, can you walk me through this? Because she had sent me the script that she had written. And I said, okay. And so we spent like an hour and a half on the phone, and she had never written a script in her life. And so I say, so here's where you want to put, the bigger, wide angle here on Taz, Dizzy Devil as Babs goes against her. And so I gave her the notes, and we're going over how to break down shots and everything, because on Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, all the writers, they wrote everything you see on screen. Everything you see and hear on screen is in the script. They write everything. So it's very detailed. It's not like a live action script where you'll see a live for even like Casino or the Goodfellas, where the director he knows what he's going to do, so he doesn't have to have all the details in the script. But in our case, we wrote everything in the script because so many people will be working on it down the line that if it's not in the script, it's not going to get in the final cartoon. So we were very, very detailed. And Sherry really took to that. And she's also just naturally incredibly funny. I'd say the funniest people I ever met in my life, I met working on the show. There's Sherry, there's Paul Rugg, there's Deanna Oliver, and many more. Just hilarious people.
This show was surprisingly executive produced by Steven Spielberg. But he doesn't really have a knack just to suddenly create animation. And by that time, at that time he had his hands full. At the time when we were making the show, he had his hands full. He was going through an absolutely hard time making this intense film called Schindler's List about a guy who rescues thousands of Jews from the Holocaust. And he actually filmed in the very spots where these atrocities took place. And it was really painful for Steven Spielberg to go through because he was a Jew. So at day he would shoot Schindler's List. In the middle of the day, he would be on a video conference call with some of these other people from California saying, going over the dailies of this dinosaur movie he was making called Jurassic Park, which would have 6 minutes of CG dinosaur effects, which would blow everyone out of the water when they saw it, make that film the highest grossing film of the year, and change the way special effects were done. And then he was looking at storyboards on your show. How much or how little time did Spielberg spend on the storyboards with your show?
Well, when he was doing Schindler's List, we were low on the totem pole of his concern, because the thing is, we had already made Tiny Toons by then. So we had made 100 episodes of Tiny Toons, and before Steven left to do Schindler's List, he saw where we were heading with Animaniacs. He had approved the character groups that you just went over, and he was very pleased that we had been so successful with Tiny Toons, and he just said, well, keep up the great work. So he pretty much left us on our own to pursue Animaniacs with all these brand new characters. And so I understand occasionally he would be looking at the storyboards while on the set. He'd be like going through an Animaniacs storyboard and pointing it out, funny things to people. I always thought that the Warner Brothers red noses, black and white, except for their red noses, played into the whole idea of the way Steven colorized the little girl in the red coat in Schindler's List. I have no idea if that did influence him, but so yeah, he was not terribly involved with Animaniacs. Yeah, there was a guy named Doug Wood who read the scripts. That's all he did. But no one. So it was Steven and Doug Wood at Amblin, and then it was, other than that, it was just me and Sherry and Paul Rugg and Rich Aarons, the producer, and all the directors and all the storyboard artists and all the brilliant people involved. But as far as Amblin goes, it was just Steven and Doug Wood.
Those 6 main segments were not the only things. As a matter of fact, there were like some minor segments.
Yes.
We have Flavio and Marita, the hip hippos. We have Chicken Boo, the guy who wears a disguise look like human guys, but he's always but only there's one guy who thinks he's a chicken, but he don't believe in him. Then the disguise falls off, and everyone believes in him.
And he looks like a chicken, but he's like a chicken with a hat. He's a big human-sized chicken with a hat, and they say, oh, he's a guy with a hat. But then the hat falls off, and suddenly, oh, he's a chicken. It's really absurd. It's absurd, but funny. And we did a handful of those. Yeah.
Then we have Mr. Mime. Then we have the Skullhead Show. But at least one.
Good idea, bad idea.
Scissor hands. Good, yeah, that one
right.
too.
Right.
And
Minerva
Kitty Kaboom,
yeah.
who's who gets angry and turns into a hulking monster, like the Hulk, whenever something doesn't go her way.
Yeah, she's like a very hormonal teenage girl based on Nick Hollander's daughter, who was named Katie. And Nick Hollander's daughter did not appreciate the
And then finally, we have the furry girl of your dreams, Minerva Mink, who's only had 2 segments, but was cut after the first 65 episode season. And why is the first season 65 episodes, mind you? I asked Dad.
No.
Because you designed this to be a syndicated show, and then after that, you had a hard time getting episodes off the ground.
No, that's not correct. The end part isn't. I mean, it was syndicated 65 half hours, and that represents 13 weeks. So 13 weeks at 5 episodes per week, Monday through Friday. 13 weeks times 5 is 65. So then you can rerun it 3 more times. So that's a year, right? So 13 weeks times 4 is 52 weeks. So that's why 65 is like the magic number for syndication. But we had extra segments. And that's why we did 3 episodes, like in the second season, we had 3 extra episodes with a lot of good feathers in them. And then, so then we got up to 68. And then from 69 through 99, we did 30 more episodes. Making the first 65 was plenty. And then we had to make another 35. So we were tired, but we were making, by that point we started making Road Rovers and Pinky and the Brain and Freakazoid. So we were busy. We had a lot going on.
Yeah. You were busy throughout the 90s. Paul Rudd actually admitted this. This show was taken off the air because the people with Warner Brothers were like, hey, this show is kind of getting rather expensive to produce, and all of a sudden we've got this show that we've kind of imported from Japan, and it's like getting huge ratings, and we just got it for free, and it's like getting so much airtime and stuff. You know what? Maybe we should have that be our main show. So suddenly they take Animaniacs off the air to make way for Pokemon, of all things.
Well, it's not that our show, they weren't so concerned about the cost of our show at all until they started getting shows for free. When the Pokemon people said, you can have our shows for free. And so they put them on, and they got a lot of ratings. And it's like, wait a minute, we're getting this for free and we're paying a fortune for this Animaniacs thing. Let's not do that. Let's just do this. So you're very close to the way you described it is very close, but they weren't so worried about the expense of our show until they started getting stuff for free.
As a matter of fact, Dad, this is one of the first TV cartoons in history to have a online fan base. There was a news group called alt.tv.animaniacs.
That's
And
right.
they often discussed how they liked the episodes or their favorite fan theories or anything like that.
That's right. And some of those people actually came out to Hollywood at Burbank and visited with us, and it was
I
a
saw a
fun time.
vintage news segment about that
Yeah,
on YouTube.
and they publish in that group. They would publish all the lyrics to all the songs and sometimes entire scripts. Really great.
Oh yeah.
So Tom, do you still work at this or are you retired?
Yo, no, I'm busy. I've got some cartoon stuff I'm working on with Paul Dini and Paul Rugg and Sherry and various people. I've got a lot of recordings done. I'm still working on the drawing and the animating.
There you go. Nice.
Runt's performance by Frank Welker is inspired by Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man. And people are saying that's a negative depiction of autism, but that's only because that may have been the first time people had heard about autism, maybe you. But then I came along, and then I was diagnosed with autism, and now you have to start learning the whole ship again.
That's right.
Well, yeah, Frank Welker's character, it does touch on the Runt character has some speech patterns that are like the Dustin Hoffman character, and yet I don't think he does specific things that are necessarily in the spectrum. Yeah.
So Tom, do you still have like a fan group for Animaniacs? And
I think on mainly on Facebook and Twitter, that's kind of where fans go and
Gotcha.
where I interact a lot. I go to some cons. There are Animaniac fans, that have been watching since 1993,
Well, I did see ads for this show, or maybe a few episodes back in the 90s while Pokemon was really starting to make the rounds, but then I really started to connect with what really started to get into it right around late 2013, early 2014, and I was kind of on a tear. I really loved these episodes and stuff, and I really seem to enjoy the cute designs. So it's like, you know what? I get a little jealous of Fifi LaFume's tail because I want to feel like it would be a good sensory item for me because her tail is twice the size of her body, and she likes to
twirls around.
twirl around with it, and also stuff. It's like plus some
a little bit like your weighted blanket.
yes.
But we only have a few minutes left, so let's. What do we do about the Animaniac anniversary? Well, 30 years ago, we premiered it in Washington, of all places, Washington D.C., at an event for like senators and congressmen and their families. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, and they brought their little the senators and congressmen that have little kids living in Washington, because a lot of them leave everybody home, but sometimes some of them have their kids living with them. So we had this ballroom and we had an event there, and so anyway, we did that. We premiered and we did very well on Fox. The minute we went to the WB a few years later, the WB had like 3 stations, so our ratings plummeted. It was like being on shortwave radio. So, but anyway, the first few years we were king of the roost. Yeah, or we ruled the roost. Yeah, king of the hill. So yeah, and Animaniacs was definitely, of the cartoons I made, it was my favorite because creatively we had such freedom to just basically make each other laugh, and that was our goal.
That's a good goal for a cartoonist.
So as you know, in the main title, can you hear me? The main title has these, at one point in the main title, all the characters are, some of the characters are kind of marching along. It's when they're saying, we're Animaniacs, we have pay or play.
Yeah, paid or
contracts.
play contracts.
They pull out their contracts. But so this is a thing I just recently did, which is
Whoa, you gotta turn off the blue.
Love it.
Oh yeah. Ah.
So
Right
yeah,
there.
that's everybody, pretty much. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of the main, I mean, even Mr. Skullhead and Katie Kaboom and Chicken Boo and the mime. Oh, there's one we didn't mention right there. Look at that guy.
That's
Remember him?
the kid who was talking about his friend Randy Beeman all the time.
That is right. He comes out and those are very, very cute because the person who told those stories, the little boy that came, it was Deanna Oliver's son, and he basically, those were stories that he he came home and told her about. So there's a real reality. There's a true reality to those things. Anyway, so and there are the pigeons way up there. Yeah. So what should we do? How are we signing off here?
You know, Dad, he did something on Mexican night where every single Mexican night he would play the Mexican hat dance just to make the music taste better.
Make
Well,
the food taste better.
well, there's a song in this show that is exactly to the Mexican hat dance song. It has
Yes, it
all
is.
the countries in the world. I mean, I could sing it, but
Yes. All right. Give me the first few lines of. Don't do the whole thing, but give me the first batch of countries. Yeah, let's hear this.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic of Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Bahamas, and Bahamas, and Guam, Colombia, Venezuela, Caribbean, Bahamas, and Guam.
That's great. Perfect. That's great. All right. Now I'm going to sing you Lake Titicaca. You ready for this?
Okay.
Lake Titicaca, oh Lake Titicaca, with water so tranquil and blue. Lake Titicaca, oh Lake Titicaca. Wait a minute, I forgot the words. Never mind. It ends. They sing the song because they like saying Titicaca. That's really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Thank you so much for celebrating the 30th anniversary of Animaniacs with me. It's a pleasure to meet you, Jordan, David. Pleasure to meet you. Let's do this again sometime. All right.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you so very much.
See you guys later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.